everyone, this is Greg. I thought I'd do a different type of video tonight. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he says, "Hey, when I watch your videos and I see your hands, all I'm thinking about is you have these. You're about to do a magic trick or something." And so I figured I would do. This video is going to be a little bit different because I'm not doing a solo game tonight, but I just want to talk about something real quick uh, that I kind of talked about in my last solo adventure is GMless play. And so that's why I'm going to do a quick video on GMless play. And then I'm wanting to talk a little bit about where I'm probably going with it, my next couple things I'm going to do on the channel. And so GMless play. As you know, solo play is obviously GMless play, right? Playing by yourself. And so you have to learn to develop between being a solo player and being a GM at the same time, right? You have to balance that. So you have to be very careful between, you know, as a GM, you know certain knowledge, you know certain things, and as a player, you're supposed to know different. You're not supposed to know certain things, and you have to balance that. And so hopefully, what you see on my channel is how I go about that, right? And so I do this thing where balancing that GM, and so but I have one thing, and really one thing I do when I want to do solo, and that is I want to tell a story. I want to sit and play, and I want my characters to have a chance of survival. I don't want to make it easy. I'm not going to make it where they automatically succeed, but I want to make it where they have a chance. And so they have a chance to do something heroic. And the reason is because I grew up, when I sit there and play D&D, that it all comes from my love of reading, right? Growing up with characters, growing up with reading Conan and Fritz Leiber and all these other hundreds of characters. I got tons of books over here of David Gemmell, Waylander, and all these type of guys that I love. Drush the Legend, all these characters I love. And so I don't want, if I'm going to read a book, and let's say they even die at the end, that's great. But I want to be able to I want to know when they die, there's a reason for it, heroic fashion or whatever. And so when I play D&D, I think that's why everybody comes to it. You want to create a character. The reason they have levels is because you want to level up. You want to see your character grow. You want to see a story be told. And so, it's not all about, hey, let's get together and, I'm going to try to kill the characters or see what you can, it's got to be balanced. That's just, I guess, what I'm trying to get to. And so, I'm here to tell a story. And so that's one of the reasons that I love solo play. And now that you've seen, like, the reason I've done 2 videos on Torin the Outcast, and I'm going to do another one, and I'm going to keep playing him for this a little bit, it's because I love his story. I rolled that up, um, I rolled it up with using my Shadow Dark 1-page generator, roll my character, created this half orc thief who used to be who's a wizard, was a wizard's apprentice, and now he's working for the gravedigger, the person who takes care of the burial grounds at a wizard tower. And I thought, wow, that is a very cool setup. And I love how this, and he's in a town, the city of Doraine, which is in the Arctic area, a kind of a northern area. And so I like that. I was like, this is a fun story to tell and to play. And so that's why I continue to play Torin. And so, and I'm going to continue to play Torin the Outcast because I think that's just fun. And so, GMless play. That's why I do it. That's why I want to tell a story. And so when I talk about GMless play as a group, it's the same thing. You get your friends together, and most people there who want to play want to tell a story. They got this idea for a character. They've been reading their favorite books. They've been watching their favorite TV shows, whatever. I have a character. I have my fantasy character. I have my Bilbo Baggins or whatever you want to do. I have my, my Legolas, whatever. And I just want to create a character, and I want to see him grow. And, I think that's one part of the game that um, is the same for everybody. I mean, I just think that's the way it is. And so when we get into this thing about, um, you know, growing up, when me and my friends had characters and stuff, we were, as GMs, we were very, very, we wanted to make it challenging, but we were very conscious of the fact that we didn't want to kill someone's favorite character. We're not sitting here playing Monty Hall is what we call it in a day, where we're just giving away Vorpal blades and plus five. That's not the case. We wanted to keep it challenging and fun, because the best stories that we were reading at the time and that we continue to read are the ones where our heroes face obstacles. They might get the sword of Shannara or Shannara. I can't remember how he says it. I met Terry Brooks, and I think that's what it's called. Shannara. Like, he might get the elf stones or whatever, and but it's still a challenge of him or her trying to use it, or the wish song, where it was a female character. So the challenge of trying to learn their magic in it, but they have to press it into service because the Dark Lords come in or whatever. That's the reason we do role playing games. That's the reason I do it, and so and my friends too. And so when you do a GMless game, the one thing that excuse me, the one thing about it is that everybody can sit there and come to tell the story. And so you're not worried about, who's going to GM this night, where are we going to, you'd always do this. Well, I'll GM for 3 sessions, and then you pick up and you GM for 3 sessions. And so I got to a point where I was like, hey, let's just do GMless. Let's just roll. And really, what got me towards this is solo play, because I saw how easy it was. And so, just this couple weekends ago, me and my buddy did Dragonbane. He wanted to learn how to play Dragonbane. I grabbed into Deepfall Breach, and then he made a character. I made a character, and we just group soloed through it, and it was a lot of fun. We came up with ways to do it. I think he was kind of skeptical about it, because I was like, I'm not DMing you through something. We're going to play together, and we're going to do GMless. And he's like, I don't know, because he's never done it that way. So he's like, so we did it. And I think it came out, sorry, I got a small cough, but we did it, and it ended up being a lot of fun. And we had to make some adjustments in the time, because we had two characters, so we didn't use some of the solo rules that says if you're running a solo character, you get an extra heroic ability. And one of those heroic abilities that you should always take if you're going to solo Dragonbane, and that is Army of One. So you get 2 initiative cards, you get 2 actions every single turn. That is critical, because when you face especially a monster, or more than 2 or 3 players, you're in trouble, because it's hard. You're going to have to figure out a way. Well, if you get into combat, it's going to be very difficult. Um, and so, because that game is unforgiving in the way that you take damage and stuff. I mean, again, you can parry, dodge. It's a fantastic game. I think Dragonbane, ooh, Dragonbane Shadow Dark. Man, I would say, here I'm in the middle of a video making a change. I'd probably say Dragonbane is better. Is not a good word. The reason I would say I like Dragonbane is the fact that you have more customization in your character in the rules itself. However, Shadow Dark is so old schooly that you can add old school flavor to it. And what I mean by that is, it's almost like your character has a lot of, because you can have a background, you can have all these type of things, you have this kind of diversity of character. The one thing about Dragonbane is you get to pick your skills. You have to have ones that are close to the profession, but you got to have 6 out of the profession, but you can pick your other ones, and so it allows you a little more flexibility in it. And I love the experience system in Dragonbane better than any old school, not just Shadowbane, Shadow Dark, any old school, where you have to do experience to level up. Because one of the things that I don't like about old school games is the fact of, how do I get my ability scores up? How do I get my skills up? And the only way I can do that is by leveling up. Dragonbane takes that away, because after every adventure you can roll and you can increase your skills after every single. So your character, yeah, he's not going to grow in hit points, or not going to grow in certain things. But it can get up to that point when you get maybe heroic abilities and stuff. But boy, you feel like your character is improving without having to level. And I think that's brilliant. And so I would say Dragonbane is probably right now one of my favorite games to play. Anyway, we got together to play Dragonbane. We did it as 2 of us, and we had a fantastic time. And I think the same thing works with 3 or 4 players. You get 3 or 4 characters together, you roll. You can. The reason I like Dragonbane is the same reason that I like Shadow Dark, is that I can sit here with one book. We can roll our characters. We can generate an adventure. We can generate an adventure map. We can generate a town. We can generate stuff. Everything we need to know, we can just roll it real quick. Heck, if we want to, we're like, hey, we're in the high district of some town. Let's roll on a D100 and let's just pick something and let's start the adventure. Like I roll 1d6 City Watch or Outclass trying to catch an acrobat. Hey guys, what do y'all think? You want to play this? Yeah. What do you think's going on? Who is this acrobat? What do you think the story is about him? And then we can have everybody around the table. We're not worried about one GM to come up with all this stuff. We have 4 minds of imagination going to create. And I have done uh, this with couple people, GMs, and every single time we've had a lot of fun. We didn't cheat when it came to making the villains or the monsters or whatever. We didn't cheat to try to make it beneficial. We were able to tell the story that we wanted to tell, um, and make it up as we go without having to worry about a GM. And I'm not knocking anything about GMs. Again, don't hear me. If you love the GM and you're a GM and you have a great GM and all that, that's great. Play that way, man. You're never going to hear me say play the way you want to play. I don't care if you want to play 5e, 5+5, 4 edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 20th edition, whatever. You want to play Dragonbane, OSC, whatever. Play whatever you like. And this whole fight about this is the right way to play or this is the wrong way to play, hell with all that mess. Just play what you like to play. And so that's just the way I have been. It's the way I think my friends are. This is how we just get together and we play. And we like the games we like, and we like to play the way we like to play. But one thing about GMless play that I think is very interesting is that everybody comes to the table. They're all different players, right? Different ways people want to play, and you can see videos where they break this down, right? People who's an RPG, people who's a gamer, people like whatever, the in betweeners or whatever. I will tell you me as a player, RP can go. And I know I'm playing an RPG. But what I'm talking about is like I'm not going to sit in the tavern for 30 minutes, 20 minutes of game time, yip yapping. Or how did you meet your character? How are you doing? Well, back in the day, you know, my dad was a logger and my mom was this and this is why this, and all this kind of stuff. You can build that stuff as you go and as you can play, and you can just say, hey, my character came from this, whatever. But I'm the Professor Dungeon Master School rule. Within 10 or 15 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, if I don't know what my adventure is, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to sit there all night and wait to the DM to tell me, you know, sit there for 2 hours. Like, I was watching Glass Cannon Network because they're doing Shadow Dark, and to me, boring. Like, I can watch it and I like it, that type of stuff. But if I was playing in that game, I'd be like, move along, little doggy, let's go. Because I don't think he introduced, they did so much of, they were 4 people and getting to know each other. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. You're going to play together. Like, all 4 of you are going to play as a group. So why do you sit around for 2 hours to try to talk and yip yap about why you're going to be a group and telling each other like, well, I'm from here, I'm from there. At the end of the day, you're going to all be together. At the end of the day, you're going to be a group. You might as well start the game as a group, right? You automatically start the game. And see, this is the only thing about, this is going to be my quick Glass Cannon Network review. Love what they do. I think it's fun. I've seen them do tons of other stuff, and I really enjoy it. It's entertaining for me. It's something to do. I can play, and I pick things up. If that's the way you want to play, that's fine. Again, me, no. However, if I was going to show a rule set off, and I'm going to say we're going to play Shadow Dark, then I'm going to start your 4 characters. Like, I love, love, love the scenario that they're doing. They are doing the idea of like a Glenn Cook. Glenn Cook, I probably have them around here. Glenn Cook, Black Company style game where one was a medic and one was a scout, one was these different type of things. They're playing that you're all part of some kind of military operation, and they're in a post-apocalyptic. Um, they invaded this country. There's a huge battle. The country that they were with got wiped out, and they're stuck, and they're trying to get back home, and they're trying to make it through. And not only did and so that's just a very cool setup. I love that type of stuff. I'm a big Steven Erikson fan. I love the Bridge Burner, Malzahn Marines, those type of books. Those are the type of things I really love. I'm a big Glenn Cook fan. I love those type of games. And so, I mean, those type of books. Big David Gemmell fan. So I love whenever they have squad based stuff. I just eat that stuff up. Maybe it's because I serve in the military, but and I used to be an infantry. So I love that type of stuff. But the um, but the one thing about it is, if you're going to play Shadowdark, play Shadowdark. Shadowdark is, yes. Can you do a campaign with Shadowdark? Yes. That's one thing I think they're trying to prove, because they're like, can you do a long-term campaign with Shadowdark? Of course you can. But if I'm going to show off how this game works, I'm going to start my 4 characters that I know they're going to be in the party anyway. I'm not going to spend 2 hours of my time trying to get them together and give them their first couple of adventures, because they're doing emergent story play, and that's fine. I love that. I would have rolled up an adventure, and they would have been, you're talking about the, the introducing people to the devastation of what these characters survived, and I would have started them in the middle of a dungeon where they are low on supplies or whatever. They just have the supplies that they rolled their first level characters on. They're in the middle of it, and they are a squad that was sent in to do something, and they go and do it, and when they come out, or what they are doing causes this catastrophic cataclysm, or when they come out of this adventure that they were sent on, like this, they're a group of, special forces or whatever you want to call it, or they've been going through this maze. The fun thing would have been they've been going through it, and they've lost so many of their people, and there are only 4 left trying to encompass this mission. And I start them in the middle of it, and I start them in the middle of a dungeon, because that's what you do when you do Shadow Dark. It's dungeon delving. Crawlers is what they're called. I would have started them with crawlers, and got them going. I know that's my class canon tangent, but if you see my videos, I do tangents. But what I'm saying is that I'm not an RPGer. I go all that way around this to tell you I'm not an RPer. And so watching all that and being in that, I would be boring. I would want to get started. That's how I'd want to play. But when I sit down with my buddies, I know that we're all different type of players. I have buddies who like RPG, and then I have RP, and some people who don't. They're like me. And so when we sit down to play, if we can give each other, we can do the adventure, and we can look at one another and go, I would like to RP for a few minutes this scenario. Would you mind doing this? And I would say, sure, I don't mind doing this. Do y'all guys want to do this? Yeah, let's do this real quick. And we'll just say, hey, let's go do this, and they know that the way I play is I can probably handle RP for like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, you know? And so, but then if I don't want to RP, another guy who's an RP and another guy who's an RP, he can take over GM and go, you know what, I'll handle that NPC and this thing. Oh, this is really cool. We're at the going, I'll play the bartender, and they get to do their RPG back and forth, and I can just get to sit back and watch. It's like I'm still doing something in the game. They're going to do their RP back and forth, but I don't have to like a GM or whatever. They can do their stuff, and it's organic in the game, and it lets them get their point, and then we can keep moving on, because we just have conversations about what do you like to play and how do you like to play, and can we do this, and we all care for each other so we don't mess it up. But it's a way that all of us are engaged in the game in the different ways in which we like to play it. That's one thing. That's one of the things I like about GM was play. The other thing, like I already told you, you don't have to have a GM who sits around all day and creates an adventure and does what he has to do, and then create the story and keep it going. If that's what you like to do, that's fine. But I find that over time that people get burned out on that, especially the guys that I like to play with. We don't have people who want to be forever GM. We want to play. And so we just Get together and do it. And a lot of times, and that leads to another point. And that point is, let's say you have players who are new to the game and they don't know, and they're like, I don't know if I want to GM or whatever. You can, by doing GMless play, you make them play as a player and you make them start to play as a GM because you're asking them, I've seen all these videos about the players should come up with the story, not the DM, which I agree with. That's the way. However, what if you have players who have no idea how to kind of start? So how are you going to get that going? By doing a GMless game, and you can say, hey, this is what we're going to do. What are you thinking? What do you want to do? And if being an experienced player, I can let the new player have all the spotlight because I don't care less about my character is going to guide towards him. So he could start telling the story he wants to tell for his character. He can say, this is the story. It's like, well, what would you think would be a good first adventure that he would want to go on? Like, what is his goal? What does he want? Does he want to find a magic sword? Does he want to, you know, oh, I want him to be, I would like to start off where he's in a village and they get attacked by a group of orcs and he has to go on some kind of quest or whatever. So then you go, okay, hey, everybody, let's just play our characters. We're all in this village and we're going to get attacked by orcs. How would we set it up? You set it all up, you play. When it comes to the orcs time, everybody can roll and do whatever, and you play the scenario. And then that allows a new player to do both. He's playing the game and playing his character, but at the same time, he's helping build the story. And so it gets everybody engaged. Sorry, I got this freaking nagging cough three, and it just comes out when I talk a lot. But um, it gets them involved in playing. And so if you're looking a way to get players involved, and you've tried all the tricks and stuff that, there's a ton of YouTube videos about how to get players involved, try GMless playing. Try to say, we're not even going to play with a GM. And what's beautiful is that if you're playing Shadow Dark, you have everything in here. You can create a map, your town, your village, your thing. You can just say, no one has an idea. You can roll a random, she's got a random encounter. Something happens. Bam. And you can say, hey, new player, grab, grab a, grab your prehensile dice. Which ones are those? Those that look like this. Oh, okay, that's what these are for. Yeah, those are exactly what those are for. Roll them up, and then the one that has the tens on it will be your tens. The other one will have your ones, and you just roll it up. Okay, I rolled a 67. Okay, cool. A wild owl man approaches with a holy book held high. You know, so a wild man can. Who is this guy? What do you think? What do you think he's doing? His holy book. He's like, I don't know. What God do you think? He's worshiping. Like, what would be? What are some of the things? And then you can let them give some ideas, or you can go around the room and say, "You give me an idea. You give me an idea. You give me an idea." Until you generate where everybody in the party is kind of like, um, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let's roll with that one." And then you're playing and you're off and running, right? And so you can have someone who says, "Oh, I think the guy does this. I'll take the holy man for a minute," and you're kind of like, you're role playing him, right? And then afterwards, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." So this guy he's holding this book on high because, he wants us to. He's trying to get our attention because he wants to use the book to tell us something like there's a prophecy coming in, and we're the ones he wants to know if we could stop it or whatever. Or he's holding it up high and he drops it down in front of your new character and says, "I've been looking forever for you. You're right here in his pages. You're the one I've been called," and that's been called by that. And he goes, "How do I know?" How do you know? He's like, "Because he describes him and he looks just like you." You know what I mean? And so that way you get them involved or whatever, and then you could say, "What is it?" Because maybe he says, "I want my character to be a hero, saver, whatever," and then you roll this up, and then everybody at the table can have a say and get it going. And to me, it's been the best way of playing, and because it gets us all at the table, it gets us going, it gets in the middle of it. So if you haven't tried GMless play, get together with your buddies and just say, "Hey, let's all make a character. Let's try this." I mean, if you're watching my channel, you're a solo player anyway. So what if you get just someone else? If you get on a VTT, like you don't have anybody around or whatever, and you get 3 or 4 people, you can still do it online. You can do it different ways. And maybe down the road, I'll do I'll send something out and say, hey, anybody want to do a GMless game with me, and we'll get online and just play. Um, and then everybody, but what I would probably do is say, what style of player are you? Because this is the style of player I'm with. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to waste my time. And it's okay if we don't get along. Um, if we don't have the same style, we want to get along. But you see what I'm saying? Like, we're not, it's like, hey, if you're this type, hey, here's a group of guys who want to get together and build a thing. It's the same. I think it's a lot like doing play by post in a sense, where I've been in play by post where everybody just kind of writes the story as we go along. It's a little flavor of that, but GMless play. Give GMless a chance. Grab your book. I'm telling you that the good way, these Shadow Dark is perfect for it. So is Dragonbane, because they have random tables on how to create an adventure, how to create a dungeon. I mean, if you want, you can get something like, you know, I think Kelsey's talked about this, The Tomb of Adventure Design by Matt Finch. This is a excellent resource. It just has a whole lot of creating an adventure. So if you want to try something like that, but you know, GMless play, give it a shot. Get your group together and say, hey, let's try this. Let's just all get together. We're all going to be the GM. We're all going to be the player tonight, and let's just tell a story. Dad, burn it. But anyway, that's my pitch. Try GMless play. And if you want to talk a little bit more about it, put it in the comments below. I know my videos can be rambling. I don't write things down. I just kind of talk. The second thing that I wanted to talk about tonight was where I'm going to go. I've promised. I know I said I'm doing an OSC game. Maybe I just ought to just go ahead and straight do it. But as I read OSE, it takes me back to when I was started playing D&D when I was younger, and I started on BX and the box, and then we moved to AD&D and playing, and the creativity was a little bit different when I was younger. Like when D&D was new, maybe I just got lucky because I was a young kid and we had a game club that was for adults. They met at a church of all places. Episcopal church let them use part of the building to have a game club in at night. And it just happened that the guy who did most of the DM in there, who was the head of the club, because they used to have RPGA associations. And so they were all over the place. This is 70s, late 70s. Um, so 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And so they would have these clubs. And my parents knew, my dad wasn't a player, gamer, but he knew a guy that had this game club. And so my friends, we went, and I'd be like 9, 10 years old, and I'd show up, and they would take us kids and go, teach us how to play D&D. Or sometimes we'd be able to get in that big campaign room, right, where Dan was running. The guy's name was Dan, and Dan ran his ran his main dungeon. We'd get in there and everything sometimes. But when I'm reading OSC, it takes me back to that. And so, and just the creativity that was going on. We played by the rule books, but we also allowed, the DM would allow ideas. Like if you had an idea for a character, he would, and there was a lot of that. If you look at all dragons, old dragons and stuff like that, you'd see where if you were a thief character and you followed a certain god, you got certain abilities and special things. Like, you might have, invisibility at third level as a spell. These type of blessing. They weren't really spells. They were kind of like innate abilities that your god blessed and bestowed upon you. And so, kind of like powers. And so that was all part of the game. And it just takes me back because if you watch Secrets of Blackmoor, you see the person who's like, he's the first person to play a paladin. I think it was a she. Played a paladin. This is the first person to play the dwarf. So they were making these things up as they go. Like what's a fighter man, what's a magic user, or whatever. And they're trying to take these archetypes, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this into a game? How do we do spell casting, and how do we do all this kind of stuff? And then really back in the day, D&D was a wild west when it came to a lot of this stuff, because you had all these different, Dungeons and Dragons came out on top, but you had a lot of different ones. It's the reason why you have Dragonbane. It was started in the 80s over there in Sweden and stuff, and it's like they're all kind of derivatives of the game. And so, if I remember correctly, it was the reason that Gary Gygax did AD&D was to try to head off a lot of these games that were developing in the past, to try to get to become the top game. And so the because I used to have Arduin, I had those booklets and stuff like that. I have some of the older games. I think I have a lot of Judges Guild stuff. I have a lot of stuff that was kind of D&D, where people were kind of create a lot of creativity back then. So when I read these things, it's what it makes me think about. And so when I read OSE, it takes me back to BX, takes me back to 80 and all this type of stuff. And I'm like, I would love to do it and then run it through maybe Slavers or the Slave Lords, one of these older adventures and stuff. But then, as you see behind me, this is just like three of my shelves that go all the way down and they go up. And I have all kinds of games on here. I have my Greyhawk stuff, my Night Below, and some of my Planescape, my Forgotten Realms, and all these, my Rules Encyclopedia. I have all these games. But one of the things, as I was looking the other day, I had remembered I bought this. This is the Northland Saga Complete, and it goes with Sword and Wizardry. It was put out by, I think they did some of them for Pathfinder as well, but they put this out um, as the Lost Lands. So Sword and Wizardry, I started playing that with someone. It's just an old school style of play. It's more based upon OE/BX type of thing, and so it's written by Matt Finch, and I think Matt Finch helped do Osric as well, I believe, when it finally. And this is edited is Stuart Marshall, but I think, yep, initial author Matt Finch and final author and editor chief. So Osric. I have all these old school. So when I think about these things, I think about all these old school games, right? And I'm like, man, I'm torn on which ones should I run, which one should I play. Oh, I would love to play OSE. Oh my gosh, look, there's Sword and Wizard, all these type of things. So I was sitting here looking, and I was just on my shelf one day doing something a while back, and I saw this big old book, and I said, man, I love, this was like 700 pages of just Norse goodness. And so the guy who wrote it, Kenneth Spencer, you can find an interview on him, because I think they just did a Kickstarter to kind of get it updated I don't know, Pathfinder 2, 5e, 5.5, something, whatever. And so he was doing it, and he was talking about like he's like a Norse expert or something like that, or he's in Norse history and mythology and everything. And so he created this book, and it has like a player's guide, and it is 10 adventures. It's an adventure path that takes place in the north part of the Northlands, which is kind of like a Nordic culture type of thing. Very, very, very cool. And so I just picked it up, and I was just reading it just to read it, because I was like, oh man, I love this stuff. So I'm just reading through it, and I'm going through it, and I'm like, wow, this is very, 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 very impressive. Because when I first got it, I got it. It's one of those things where you pick up, but you're like, oh, I'll get to it one day. And very impressive. So I was thinking, if I'm going to do OSE, if I want to do something different, I can do OSE and Slavers. But I'm thinking about really doing this and using the revised edition of Sword and Wizardry. So I have the revised edition that he just put out. You know, Matt Finch has been a old school Renaissance. He has a old school primer newsletter thing that he did. You'll find it at Mythmere Games, which is very good, talking about the whole old school. And also, I like to do games that a lot of people just haven't seen, because I haven't got to play Swords and Wizardry, right? I own this one. I got the first one. I have his Monstrosities. I have the first one around here too. So his Monstrosity book that has all this. This is his monsters. And then I know I have the other old school, the first one that he did. I know I have it around here as well. But I think that's what I might do. Because he did, this is for Osric and their monsters. But I think that's what I'm going to do. I have a lot of Lost Land stuff by them. They put out some amazing products, the Borderland products, the Cults of the Thunder Kingdom. I don't know. I was just, perusing my shelf, and I was like, you know what, this might be fun to play. And so it's just regular old school. So if you if you're like, well, I wanted to see you play OSC, all this stuff is all this stuff is pretty much the same. It is. It's just pretty much the same. It's just different revised ways of playing old school D&D that just has a modern little twist on it. Um, and so I think this is what I will end up doing is playing um, uh, Swords and Wizardry. And the only reason is because this is built for Sword and Wizardry. So I think this is what I'm going to do next. The other thing I want to do on this channel, I've been talking about, well, I got plenty of time to do a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to continue to play Torin, the Outcast, because I loved, like I said, I loved when I created him, and I love playing him, and I love the story. It just came a really cool story of, like I said, Wizard's apprentice working for the guy who works in the graveyard of a wizard's tower. It's just I don't know, I think that's cool. I think it'd be great, someone should write a novel. But I'm going to continue doing, you're going to see me popping up these because I'll hope to get where I can, life is kind of calming down a little bit, so maybe I can get at least 2 videos a week, and that would be good. I can do that while I'm moving towards this. And just because I love Viking, Norse mythologies type of stuff, and so this is an amazing book, and I like to show off some good products that some people haven't maybe seen, and maybe some people will buy, 1 or 2 of these, but it's I don't get any money for any of this stuff. I just love to play, and I don't know why I'm putting that back because I'm continuing reading it. But anyway, that's what it is tonight. Just wanted to talk about jamless games. Maybe get a face video where people can say, "Hey, that's who he is," and show you where a little bit of what I'm thinking and where I want to go with the channel. You're going to start seeing Scott's videos. It is weird that there's 2 of us who own the channel, but we play differently, which is fine. But Scott is working on his next video. He's getting voice actors and music. He's writing scripts and stuff. So his stuff is he's playing a Pathfinder Avenger, but he's kind of bringing in that Tales of the Manticore, that audio drama type of stuff. That's something he's want to do. And so, which is cool. It gives a diversity to our channel because we're not here to like get millions of subscribers and be some kind of whatever. We're just here with just the people who want to hang around. But that's where I'm going to go. I think I'm going with Swords and Wizardry. It might change at the last minute. I also want to continue with a little bit of Dragonbane because I just love the game. So anyway, thanks for standing around for my rambling. But try GMless play. Really try it. Get around with your buddies and play. It's a lot of fun. And then watch out some more videos on the Shadow Dark and the Lost Lands. Have a good evening.